Hey everybody, welcome to day 13. So, on this day 13, I wanted to share something very personal that I don't think too many people knew too much about. They may have known little bits and pieces of different things when it comes down to health. Uh, sometimes we keep things to ourselves because we don't know what people's reactions are going to be. We don't know, should we seek out a support system, should we deal with things on our own. It's always a catch 22 when it comes to bits and pieces of health. But I think so. I've shared bits and pieces of what I went through, but I don't know if people knew the whole story. This may take a little longer than the other videos, but I wanted to share with you the story of what happened to me health wise, because I just believe that maybe that me sharing this story maybe would encourage other people to, if they're going through some health issues, that maybe they would reach out to people for support and not keep it within themselves. So, uh, years ago, many years ago, when I was married, I wanted to have another child, and God works in some funky ways sometimes, and He will take you on a journey that you will feel that you are personally being under attack, and it won't be until later that you realize why He took you on that journey and why you ended up where you were, even if it came at a cost. So, when I was married, I wanted to have another child. I had one already, but I wanted to experience what it was like to actually have a child through a marriage and go through that whole process of it really being a fun and positive experience. Not saying that my daughter, first of all, is everything to me, and I'm forever grateful for having her. But I did want to experience like that whole fun part of it, the whole fun of guess what, this and that. I didn't get to do any of that. So throughout my marriage, I not only got pregnant once, but I did get pregnant actually 3 times, and I had 3 miscarriages. I don't know if people knew that. Um, but the final one was my final. What happened in that process is that for some reason in that final pregnancy, and you can look this up if you're interested to hear about it. It's a little rare case, but I ended up having something called a molar pregnancy. So a molar pregnancy is almost just like it sounds. It's like a mole. It's like a living organism on your uterus. And it's so strange because when I saw the ultrasound, I actually thought it was a viable pregnancy because it seemed to be throbbing. So to me, it was a heartbeat and so forth. So when I went through the process of where the doctors needed other verification, I had to go through what they call a big ultrasound, where it was a room and they had to verify that this was a molar pregnancy. At this time, when I was going through this, I could not locate my husband. My husband was not picking up his phone. That was a very common thing within our marriage where he just was not around. So here I am in the hospital by myself, and I find out that, yes, this is a molar pregnancy. Now the doctors tell me, you have a choice. You can either let your body discard the pregnancy like it's done before, or you could take something called Cytotec. I don't know if people are familiar with Cytotec is. Cytotec is basically, to my understanding, basically like an abortion pill. It can cause a lot of pain. It can cause a lot of just a lot of problems. I'm probably gonna be a little graphic in the video. You can bleed a lot. I mean, think about it. Its job is to get rid of a pregnancy. So the doctor's suggestion to me was, they say, hey, we suggest you do, it's in 2 doses. You take 2 days, take the weekend to recover, and you should be getting back to normal in a few days after that. All right, no problem. I come home. It's a Wednesday. I decide to take Thursday and Friday off from work. And needless to say, in my mind, I'm like, okay, what's going to happen? I take the first dosage of Cytotec the next morning about 6 a.m. and all hell broke loose. The crazy thing is, it didn't bleed. I was vomiting and diarrhea profusely for hours. Hours. I received a phone call from the hospital just checking to see how the medicine was working. When I told them what happened, they actually immediately became concerned. She said to me, it's a little strange that you're not bleeding, but we want you to take the next day dose and see what happens. Next day's dose was actually twice the amount that was issued the day before. I didn't sleep that whole night because if I saw what just happened to me the day before, I can't imagine taking double the dosage of what's going to happen the next day. And I was correct. It was worse. And it was so bad that once again, I'm trying to locate my husband because I could see that I was becoming dehydrated. And I had to send my elderly mother to the store to get me some Gatorade because I just could not move. I couldn't find my husband, and my daughter was in school. So I'm going through this process, and later on that afternoon, as things started to calm down a little bit, I'm weak as I don't know what, can't keep food down, everything is bad. The hospital calls, I bled 0. The doctors informed me that you have to come to the hospital first thing in the morning, Monday morning. They wouldn't tell me why. They just said, you got to come. I go to the hospital first thing Monday by myself. I go there and they send me to radiology. Now, I'm not a doctor in that regard. Like I don't know what I'm looking at. But I'm seeing these pictures and these imageries, and it doesn't look normal to me. And the first thing I do is I turn to the radiologist and I ask the radiologist, do I have cancer? Because I'm actually looking at imagery of my uterus. And it basically looks like ink spots. Like it just doesn't look normal. Not that I even knew what an original should look like, but seeing the concern of the radiologist's face, and his response to me was, you need to go talk to your doctor. I go back to my doctor and they immediately tell me that we have to schedule you for surgery to get a D&C and a D&E immediately. Now, I think sometimes doctors don't want to alarm you, but I had to put the brakes on everything and I said, whoa. What's wrong? And I asked, do I have cancer? And her response to me was, not yet. So I said, you've got to give me 24 hours. I got to get my family in order and so forth. Fine. They give me the 24 hours. I go to surgery, get the procedure done. To them, they are saying everything should go back to normal. So what she suggested to me is that every week I'm going to need you to go get blood work done because we're going to need to see that your numbers, those hormones, go back to 0. The ones that tell when you take a pregnancy test, the ones that are in your urine. I can't think of what those hormones are at the moment. So every week for weeks, I go get this blood work done and I'm not hearing from anyone. So I'm assuming that my body is getting back to normal. Little did I know that those numbers were not going down, they were going up. So I get a frantic phone call from my doctor one morning at work about 8 o'clock in the morning. And you know that if your doctor is calling you at 8 o'clock in the morning, it's not good. My doctor calls me and says, your numbers didn't go down over the past couple weeks. They have continuously gone up. So she says, I'm going to need for you to come in because we need to think of a next course of action. They don't tell me much over the phone. They never do. So in this process, I get to the doctor's office alone. And she tells me the only way to bring those HCG hormone levels down is chemotherapy. So I say, yo, you need to tell me if I have cancer. Not yet. So I said to her, well, what, like I'm in a trance. Like I'm confused. I don't know what's going on. She says, we're going to give it another week. And if the numbers don't go down, you have to go to oncology. And if you're not familiar with oncology is cancer. So as I'm leaving the doctor's office alone, I feel something on my leg. I don't know what's happening. Like I look down, like I had a long skirt on, and I look behind me. I've left a trail of blood. Blood is just coming down my legs. I run back to my doctor's office and I said, there's something wrong. Blood is coming everywhere. They stick me into a room to elevate my legs and they give me things to hopefully stop the bleeding. And she says to me, we're just going to leave you here for a minute, but you're going to have to go home. Like I was actually on my way to work. I was not coming home. I go home, put my legs up, and I started to notice something very alarming. I was going to the bathroom and there was chunks of blood coming out of me. Not just little droplets. I could hear the blood hitting the water in the toilet. I felt extremely weak and I knew something was wrong. I immediately called the doctors and I said, I think something's wrong. I tell them what's going on. I tried to find my husband. Can't get him. She says, you need to come to the hospital immediately. I get to the hospital and they tell me that they're putting me on emergency standby for a hysterectomy. If that bleeding doesn't stop, I'm in trouble. Now, any woman that knows their worth is like hearing the words hysterectomy is not something you want to hear. It almost feels like a part of you as a woman is being removed. So I said to them, there has to be another way. And she says, if that bleeding is not stopped by the next morning, you are going to surgery. So I took a vigil in my room, and I was by myself and couldn't find my husband. I was there all by myself. I couldn't reach out to my friends because I was embarrassed to call a friend to tell them that my husband was not there with me. I didn't have the courage to do that. So I sat there and all night I just prayed that the bleeding would stop. And anybody that knows that's been in a hospital, you don't really get much sleep anyway because they come and poke you in the middle of the night. They take your blood pressure in the middle of the night. And because I was a person that was scheduled for surgery, I was not able to eat. I could only eat ice. And it just, to go through that process of waiting was just horrible. So the next morning came, and in one regard, I was grateful because when they took me to get an MRI done, the bleeding had stopped. But my HCG levels went up. And I remember them coming to me. A team came to me and they said that you're producing cancer cells in your uterus. And the only way to treat it is through chemotherapy. So the only thing you know to do is you just, all I could think about was my daughter. And that I wanted to be around for her. Like, I didn't want to die. So they said to me, the only way to treat this is through methotrexate. So, of course, as silly and stupid as I am, the first thing I think about is, what am I going to look like bald? My head is not round. I got some lumps, So they informed me that methotrexate is not a chemotherapy that your hair falls out, but it's very damaging to the system. And that even though your hair won't fall out, your hair is not going to be in the greatest condition and so forth. So I didn't care. I just wanted to be better. Methotrexate has to be given by needles, and it has to be given by 2 nurses at the same time, simultaneously, basically in one butt cheek and the other. They informed me that there's a possibility that when you get this treatment, that they can hit a nerve. And if they hit a nerve, you're going to have a problem walking for a while. And when I mean a while, I mean like a couple hours. My first dosage out, they hit a nerve. And I remember walking through the hospital dragging my leg because I couldn't feel it. And it took hours. And I was alone. I got chemotherapy for 15 weeks alone. And I had to get the chemotherapy in a unit where everyone was getting chemo. It was the worst thing I ever went through. And in that 15 weeks, it did even more damage. It damaged my thyroid. So I fixed one problem to end up with another problem. So it's like, once the chemo was over with, it almost was like I felt a little empowered. I apologize. Because I felt if I was married and I couldn't even go through that process with a husband, then I needed to get my life in a different direction. My health continued to plummet. And it wasn't until I started seeking out food as a comfort, because there was nothing else to comfort me. When I should have been enjoying time with my child and all this kind of stuff, the only thing that comforted me was food. That was it. So I ate and I ate and I ate. And it wasn't until that doctor, and I go into that doctor's office and they take my blood pressure. My blood pressure was 156 over 120. They immediately sent me to a cardiologist. That cardiologist took every test. They did an echocardiogram. And I saw my heart on the screen. And to me, it seemed like my heart was having such a hard time to pump. And to watch it and to see it, I was just taken back. So the test was over. And this cardiologist took me in the office and he said, I'm going to be very blunt with you. He was like, you have a daughter, right? And I said, yeah. He said, I don't know what's going on in your life, but you young to be getting ready to have a heart attack and a stroke. He said, you'll probably have both. And he looked at me and he said, is food worth it to you like that? He said, you could sue me, for, I guess, not keeping the bedside manner. But he was like, I'm telling you, you're going to die. So this is why I think I take some things to heart sometimes when people say stuff about me trying to look like somebody or this and that and the other. I work my ass off to get that weight off. I didn't do it to look like nobody. I didn't do it to try to be like somebody. I did it because I was going to die. So I'm saying this and I'm giving you my full self by telling you, in this new year, stop talking shit about your health and do what you're supposed to do for your kids, for your well-being, for your grandkids. Stop the smoking, stop the drinking, stop eating shit, start walking. Do what you need to do for the sake of the family in your life. Because he told me I wouldn't make it to 50. That's how bad it was. So with everything I've been through, what if today is your day? What if you just changed today? What if?